Angeles Lakers need three-point shooting. They could use it badly. And one of the big options would be Seth Curry. Seth Curry would be fantastic, right? He is a great shooter. He is an unrestricted free agent, 32 years old, and he's coming off of a very solid shooting year. Problem is the money. Now, the Lakers don't have a lot of cap space. Depending on how they approach this offseason, they might not have cap space at all outside of like the taxpayer mid-level. The Lakers do have potential to get to like the mid-level exception, like a full mid-level, which would give them around like $12 million. They have options. They have flexibility. They also could, if they wanted to, get to like 14 million in cap space and then have an exception and then have their biannual. So they could get to theoretically like 21, 23 million in multiple contracts that they could spend. And Seth Curry was averaging about 8 million a year for a contract. So that's something to kind of keep in mind in context when you're talking about the Lakers. Now, if they, depending on what Austin Reeves' contract is and what Rui Hachimura's contract is and how are they going into this offseason as like an above the cap team, the new CBA and all that stuff, like when does that actually hit? Like all of those factors are going to be a huge factor. But if the Lakers could find a way to convince Seth Curry to sign with the Los Angeles Lakers, that would be a dream. And it's not really that far-fetched because Brooklyn has a bunch, after unloading Kyrie and unloading Kevin Durant, a bunch of young wing-type players that they're going to have to pay. They're going to have to figure out what are they going to do. Are they going to package some guys and maybe go get another piece? So Seth Curry could very well be one of like the odd men out on that Brooklyn Nets team, especially with his age being 32. It might not fit the timeline that Brooklyn is projecting for their rebuild. And if that's the case, then he's going to be going to a team that could really use him and provide him quality minutes. And here's the thing. The Lakers could approach this several ways. So they could start Seth Curry because they have LeBron James and Austin Reeves who can both handle the ball. And if they wanted to start Seth Curry at like the point guard, doesn't have like great height. He is 6'1", but with, again, Austin Reeves at that 2 slot, you could have him kind of handle the ball, and then you'd have Seth and Austin Reeves playing off the ball. That could be huge. Also, it depends on what they do with D'Angelo Russell. Do they end up like trading him and trying to get some assets for him? Do they end up keeping him? What ends up happening with D'Lo? Otherwise, Seth Curry very likely comes off the bench. But even if he does come off the bench, that's still not bad at all to have that level of a shooter come off the bench. Problem is, he's not a great defender, so he's not really a 3-and-D guy. He had a defensive rating of 117.5. To put that in perspective, league average is 115. So he is 2.5 points worse than league average, which in the scope of the NBA, that is huge. That is a real, that is not a good defensive rating at all. He would be one of our worst defensive players on the team based on his defensive rating. I believe Lonnie Walker was our worst defensive player. It was close, but he was. Seth Curry would actually be worse than him, or slightly better in the ballpark is my point. But Seth Curry is a guy that gives you 9 points per game, shoots 92% from the free throw line this past season, which is ridiculous, right? So you got a guy that can knock down free throws, a guy that can get you 10 to 12 points per game. He only played about 19 minutes per game with the Brooklyn Nets this past season, and he played in 61 games, so he's a guy that stays on the court. He's a guy that can provide you quality minutes. He was only getting about 7.5 attempts per game, so he wasn't getting super high volume, but we saw what the Lakers are willing to do with like Beasley, right? And giving him 7-8 shots from 3 per game. It's very possible that if Seth Curry was to come to the Lakers, that he could be getting, 8 to 10 threes a game and be a high volume guy. He shot over 40% from 3 this season. He has shot 40% from 3 in the last, pretty much his entire NBA career. But on volume, It's been the last about 5, 6 years. He's averaged about 5 to 6 attempts per game, and he's shot 40%. Last season, he shot 47%, which is ridiculous. So if Seth Curry could come to the Lakers and he could be a guy that could pop in and give us 10 to 15 points per game, which he's done. So after this year, so this year he gave you 9 points. The last 4 years, 5 years actually, he averaged 12 to 15 points per game. So he is a guy that could give you 12 to 15 on any given night, especially around a team with like LeBron James as a distributor, Austin Reeves. If you do keep D'Angelo Russell as a distributor, it just gives them a real threat to play off the ball. This is the kind of guy the Lakers need. Now, you're not going to fix all of your issues with just one shooter, but also shooting can be contagious, right? And the Lakers have Malik Beasley, who is a high volume streaky shooter, and we just got him on the wrong side of the streak, and it was bad. But with the full training camp, with the full offseason, with the full preseason, and a full regular season, maybe Beasley could kind of get back into the flow of things. But if you had Seth Curry, again, sometimes knocking down shots gets contagious. You see it, right? Watch an NBA game, and you'll see like one or two guys just start hitting everything, and what ends up happening? Everyone starts hitting everything. And the opposite effect happens, right? When you'll see like one or two guys can't buy a bucket, all of a sudden nobody can buy a bucket. And with Beasley being pretty much the only volume 3-point shooter on the Lakers, if he's not hitting, he doesn't have somebody else to kind of see the ball go in from three and go, okay, like I can hit that, right? It just, again, that contagiousness doesn't exist when the Lakers are as bad of a 3-point shooting team as they are. But if you get a guy like Seth Curry, Austin Reeves can knock it down at a 40%. I mean, D'Lo even shot it at 42% during the regular season, right? So all of a sudden, if you could have 3, 4, 5 guys all shooting 40%, and you have a Malik Beasley, well, then that becomes contagious. Or can you sign Seth Curry and then flip Malik Beasley and like a first for like a Buddy Hield? Imagine if you had like a Buddy Hield and a Seth Curry. Well, now you got your 3-point shooting, right? And you could run just spreading sets where maybe you have like Jared Vanderbilt for defensive purposes, right? Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Seth Curry, and Buddy Hield, right? Like that could be, now you got some real deadly floor space. You got some real threats. You can run all kinds of different interchangeable lineups. Seth Curry, I think, would be just a huge benefit for the Lakers to get. Even if they keep, like, let's say the Lakers kept the roster exactly intact. Basically same roster, minus, let's say, maybe you lose Lonnie or whatever, right? Or let's say you keep the exact same roster, but instead of Lonnie, you basically replace Lonnie Walker with Seth Curry, right? Like now you're talking, you just added another quality, volume, consistent 3-point shooter. Like Seth, again, he's not a guy that is like Beasley, even Buddy Hield, like guys like that, you'll see like they're high volume, they're 7 of 10 from 3, or they're 2 of 10 from 3. It's usually, very rarely are there those in-betweens. And it's just like, they'll have 5 or 6, 7 games where they're just lights out from 3, and then they have 3, 4, 5 games where they're mediocre, if not terrible, from 3. And then that becomes a thing, and then it averages out to, okay, well, they're a 38% 3-point shooter. Okay, cool. Seth Curry isn't as much of a streaky shooter as them. Like, he's consistent. He's like, knocking down 2, 3 threes per game. And if you can get Seth Curry to come over, and he doesn't have to be a 25-point-a-game guy. He doesn't have to be Steph, right? We just need him to come in, provide a quality role, play quality minutes, and knock down a couple threes per game, and just give us a threat for the floor spacing, right? Like, if we would have had Seth Curry out on the floor in the playoffs for the Lakers, that would have opened up so much more. I mean, even as bad as Beasley was for the Lakers. And the Lakers, and Beasley was bad, right? He was at moments he just was unplayable, right? And completely fell out of the rotation. But if you noticed, every time he was on the court, somebody was glued to him. I mean, glued. He got no space, right? And because he's a guy that could change the course of a game. We saw it with even the Lakers, where I think it was the Pelicans, where he scored 25 points and he made like 9 threes or whatever it was. That is something that he was capable of doing. So teams, when he was on the court, were like, do not let him get going because he's a streaky, high volume guy. He's a guy that could start 0 of 2 and then make 5 straight threes and finish 5 of 7. And you're just like, and all of a sudden you go from up 10 to like you lose by 20. And you're just like, man, how did that happen? That's what Malik Beasley could do. And that's why teams were glued to him even when he was shooting terribly, because they didn't want him to get a quality open look. He knocks that down, and now all of a sudden he can't miss. Well, if you could add a guy like Seth Curry that is capable of doing the same thing, it just spreads the floor. So now they can't double team Anthony Davis. They can't double team LeBron James. They can't pack the paint, because if they pack the paint, they have Seth Curry who's shooting 40. Maybe if he can get back to 47%, that'd be beautiful. But let's say 40%. You got Seth Curry that can shoot 40%. You got Austin Reeves that can shoot 40%. You have Malik Beasley who's capable of shooting 38 to 40%. All of a sudden, you got LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and 40% three-point shooters on the court with those two guys. Like, now you put some pressure and some issues on the defense, because now they can't pack the paint. So now they got to let Anthony Davis go to work on an island, because if they try to double team or they try to close out, then he can just kick it out to Seth, and now Seth is knocking down the 3, and instead of giving up a 2, they gave up a 3, right? Those are the kind of things that guys like Seth could really change. It's going to come down to a couple things. One, what is his market, right? If teams are offering him 10 to 15 million a year, Lakers very likely will get priced out of that. But if his market is like, 6 to 8 million, or maybe 7 to 8 million, then the Lakers actually could end up acquiring Seth Curry. Does he want to go to the Lakers? That's something to keep in mind, but I don't know why he wouldn't. And I think he would probably enjoy and have fun playing against his brother 4 times a year. So goes to the Lakers. He has that rivalry. Maybe they meet each other in the playoffs, and that could be fun. That could be something that could be entertaining and just kind of add another sort of layer to that matchup. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Would you love Seth Curry? Would you not? Should the Lakers try to get him? Do you think that they can? Whatever your thoughts are, love to hear it. Let me know.